fantastic. Yeah, like I said, it's really the most crucial part of this step where we get everybody talking about projects and try and figure out the real needs of the region.
I may have missed two. The two that come to my mind immediately are Berwick and York EMA.
Okay.
Is it just available online?
No, this will be part of the, I just got this 2 days ago. Again, it was from the meeting last Friday, our kickoff meeting. But this will be included with the invitation that we send out to tag policy, all the stakeholders listed here, and any new stakeholders that we identified.
And the planning commission is get copies on the internet or whatever?
Yes, yes. Yep. Yeah, the plan is online too, the current plan. Just let the website open. All right, I can include that as a link with the invitation that we send out. But again, I strongly encourage you to come to this stakeholder meeting.
It's always on Fridays, is it?
No, it's not always on Friday. We actually decided at this meeting, at the initial kickoff meeting, that Fridays probably weren't the best day because, you know, like we meet here on Friday, our TAC group meets on Friday, so that's 2 Fridays out of the month that don't work for us and several other people that might want to be part of this process. So we haven't come up with a date for the stakeholder meeting yet, but we will be probably early or middle of next week, and we'll be sending out the invitations probably by the end of next week. And it'll be a good 2 to 3 week notice, so hopefully that's enough notice for the meeting.
Is there a reason why Northwood isn't on the list?
No, yeah, there's a bunch of communities in our region and Rockingham region that aren't included with this. It might have just been because I don't really know why, but
I think I actually brought that up at the meeting that we should
Yeah.
include Northwood because they have very much
Yeah.
issues
Yeah.
over there.
I think what we're going to end up doing is just including every single community in Strafford's region and Rockingham region.
Just wanted to check if it was being
Yeah,
excluded.
I'm not quite sure why it was originally put together like this. It might be the major stakeholders that might have ITS systems in place right now. But we certainly recognize that there's needs in all throughout the region and every community. Yep.
And I didn't notice, is North Coast on there yet?
I don't believe so, no.
I would think anybody who's going to be impacted by the slow but steady extension of 16 needs to make sure they're there.
Okay, right. Yeah, I know Amtrak was listed, I'm pretty sure they were on this initial list, yeah. Northern New England Passenger Rail Authority
Yeah.
down Eastern.
Tricia.
Yeah, so that's really what I had for the ITS update. If you have any questions or need clarification on something, please don't hesitate to give me a call or shoot me an email. Again, we'll be sending out those invitations probably later next week. And please come if you can.
Right, are there any more questions about the ITS? Seeing none. All right, moving on to the federal reauthorization update. Earlier this month, the House released H.R. 7, which is the American Energy and Infrastructure's Job Act. We have a handout in the memo, or in the meeting packet, that kind of places the moving ahead for progress, the Senate version. Compares it to the House version of the bills, and I'm just going to go through and talk about a few of the differences right away that we noticed in the bills. The moving ahead for progress, we talked about before, it's a 2-year bill, keeps funding levels for transportation at the current levels. One of the big challenges in the MAP 21 bill, we'll remember, is the the issue with the MPOs, they set the threshold for metropolitan planning organizations at 200,000 people in an urbanized area. Our region has about, I think, 90,000 people in the urbanized area, so this causes some conflicts. Really puts us in a tough position. We don't know whether we could be, or from the sounds of it, initially we couldn't be grandfathered in. We would have to go through some kind of process, some kind of waiver process to still be designated as an MPO, or we would be phased out as an MPO. Senator Shaheen from New Hampshire and Murkowski from Alaska recently introduced an amendment to this bill that would change the thresholds for, creating an MPO and lower them. I think the MPOs in New Hampshire have been pretty good at communicating with Senator Shaheen to talk about this issue, because I believe Rockingham would also have the same problem that we're facing as far as meeting that threshold. So we do have an amendment in that hopefully will get adopted to change the MPO threshold. HR 7, which is the American Energy and Infrastructure Jobs Act, the House version. There's some things that we don't like so much about this bill. One thing we really do like is that it grandfathers in existing MPOs, so we would be protected. In this bill, the threshold for new MPOs is 100,000 rather than 200,000, so we're pretty close to that anyway, but we don't even have to worry about it in this bill. This is a 4-year bill. I believe it keeps funding levels right around the current levels that they are now. It looks to fund this bill through expanded oil, drilling and investigation around the country, allowing more regions to be explored. For some of the other ones, I think it eliminates the transit or the mass transit trust fund and combines it with the highway trust fund, and that's when some of the big complaints come in about this bill that we've heard. Really concerned about just eliminating transit and pushing it aside. It's really important to our region. It's important to other regions around the United States, and it's something that there's a number of amendments to reinstate this independent mass transit trust fund. I believe CMAQ, there were some issues with that also being, brought in under some other umbrella, under the highway trust fund, but there are also amendments to have that come out as its own separate program once again. There was a list of, we were asked to review a list of about 200 or 300 amendments that were proposed for this bill by Representative Ginta. We went through those and we provided the list of our recommendations, things we support and the things we're concerned about, are the things that are important to New Hampshire and the things that we're concerned about, and we have that for everybody here today. It's the colored Excel table. Questions about that? I'd be happy to do my best. These are both big bills, so I haven't read through all of them. I have a general sense of what's going on.
I know Lee from Federal Highways would like to hear this, but we're not using any federal planning dollars to do any lobbying for these bills, so.
No, just making our representatives aware of what some of the resources that are important to New Hampshire are. I think one of them was national scenic byways. We have 3 out of about 50 total scenic byways in the country in New Hampshire, and it's a big tourist draw for New Hampshire, so it's pretty important that we keep those funded and recognized.
Is there a proposal to cut that?
Yeah, there was a proposal to eliminate, I think, funding for national scenic byways, highways. Brad, you probably have some.
Well,
But
there are over 300 amendments that have been submitted on HR 7. It's incredibly difficult to wade through all of this, interpret, because it's not written in plain English, any of it. Unfortunately, there are very few amendments that are bipartisan. Maybe 2 pages out of what Scott had sent the other day to me were bipartisan, which probably means less than 20
Yeah.
out of, so less than 10%. And some are extremely partisan. From our perspective, removing transit funding from the Highway Trust Fund and putting it under the general fund, making it subject to annual budget negotiations is just foolish. That's not a way to run a system from year to year. We require investments over multiple years and to subject public transit operations to annual budget negotiations is ludicrous. So we're very concerned about the language as it currently is in HR 7. However, I honestly don't believe that HR 7 has any legs. So, and it seems that it maybe even be pulled. So, I'm hoping that the second time around we can come up with something significantly better.
At this point, the continuing resolution to fund transportation ends at the end of March. Our talks with Mark Sanborn, the federal liaison with Hampshire DOT, he really doesn't think either of these bills have much of a chance of moving through, so it looks like we'll probably be going on another continuing resolution. So living with the same parameters that we have been living under for the last, I guess, 8 years now, for 6 years for the bill, and then the 2 years of working under continuing resolutions for funding. There's some issues, definitely some big problems with both of these bills, and so we're looking forward to them moving closer to the middle and maybe making some compromises so that everybody can be happy with this stuff.
I'm going to say it again, everybody in this room needs to be writing their representative and their senator, letting them know how they feel on it. You do that as an individual, you don't have to do it as an organization. I think Secretary LaHood had it absolutely correct. Probably the worst and most partisan bill in 35 years.
Yeah, actually on top of DC Street Blog, which is kind of brings articles about transportation together from all over the place. The top article today was Reagan signing the last tax increase for the gas tax, an ABC piece about that, where he was saying this gas tax is going to be a great job creator, it's going to fund transit, this is good for the country, and you see now transit kind of being pushed aside, and so a lot of his ideas not being followed by folks in his party down the road. But this is important stuff, and we're really hoping for a resolution that kind of meets everybody's needs and not just one side or the other.
I had a question. On page 2,
Yep.
it says 30% of the 50% above both obligated to retrofit highway construction engines to meet particulate matter emission standards. Can you just explain that really quick?
So 50% of CMAC sub-allocated to projects making containment areas, projects reduce particulate matter. So I guess that's half the CMAC is congestion mitigation, air quality funding. Sounds like is sub-allocated funds obligated to projects that reduce fine particulate matter, which we are not in a PM containment zone in this region. I think southern New Hampshire, the Manchester area, and the Nashua area, they do fall under guess, PM,
PM?
particulate matter, I'm sorry. Yeah, standards. It sounds like, I guess, 30% of the 50%, so I'm guessing that would be roughly 15% of the total CMAQ funds are obligated to retrofit diesel engines, is what it sounds like to me from that. So there's a strong focus on upgrading the diesel buses and those types of things so that they don't emit as much particulate matter.
Well, it says highway construction engines, so does that mean money would have to be granted to private construction companies to retrofit their engines? Is that what that means?
I do not know. Is that?
Is that what that means?
It's an eligible expense.
Yeah. I don't know if that's the only expense. I think that's one of the options. I think anything that runs with a diesel engine probably falls under that category.
And just for clarification, private firms can now access CMAQ funds.
Yep.
There's no restriction to a private firm, C&J Trailways,
Yep.
going after CMAQ funds to support their capital programs.
Now, is that a change from the past regulations, Rod? Is that something new, or is that?
No, they are specifically targeting highway construction engines, though, in MAP 21, which is new.
Okay.
Because that's, I believe, I don't know, some of those might be considered off-highway vehicles
Yep.
and may not have qualified previously,
Mm-hmm.
is my guess.
Yep. And I know that that's where the particulate matter is kind of the biggest issue, is in those construction zones where you have a lot of dust and a lot of other stuff flying around.
I just want to make sure, since it's been brought up, clarified, you're talking about the SURs and the Severinos, you're not talking about transit. So that's all going to be private, because the construction is not held in the public sector. So it would all be going directly to private.
But at the same time, I don't see why DOT couldn't apply for these funds to get their vehicles retrofitted with some cleaner running engines as
Right.
well.
Yeah.
Anyone interested on how they define construction vehicles versus maintenance vehicles? Be very interesting.
Yeah. All right, if there's no further comments on the federal reauthorization. Oh, I guess I should say, in the president's proposed budget probably also won't be passed. He sets aside $476 billion for a 6-year reauthorization. It's unlikely that levels would be increased to that much. I think all the state DOTs and MPOs would be very excited if something like that happened, because our infrastructure needs that kind of investment right now. And again, there are some funding shortfalls for all 3 of these proposals. The drilling is not going to create enough funding for HR 7 to be fully funded. I don't think MAP 21 has any idea about how they're going to meet that gap, which I believe is about $14 billion in 2 years. And President Obama was proposing using funding saved from, half the funding saved from bringing troops home from other countries to fund the other part, or fund his transportation bill. But,
Forcing me to add one more thing, because you brought it up. I believe most of the estimates of what's needed is in the neighborhood of $262 billion a year.
yeah, it's.
So when you talk about 50 billion or 100 billion, you're not even beginning to correct the last 40 years.
Maintenance is still going further in the hole every year and costing more to fix every year if we don't. That's the estimates by the economists at this point, but that's where we stand on the reauthorization. All right, moving on. Project updates. I have a few project updates, a little more exciting, I think, than stuff we've been talking about. We finally got to meet with Lee, or the landowners from Lee, about a potential parking ride. This happened think it was January 31st, we sat down and met with them. DOT, we met with DOT back in the fall with Lee's acting county administrator and one of Lee's selectmen who were in support of this project. DOT at the time, they were not going to investigate on their own to find out more about this potential parking ride. They needed some more information about where the landowner was planning on having their own commercial development, and then which land would still be open. DOT was also looking for information about land value assessment, which still has not been done for this area. But we got a chance to sit down with the Caliors family and some representatives from the town of Lee and talk about the potential for a parking ride on a piece of his land. And so what we have here, I guess I'll shoot back out a little bit. So see, this is the Lee traffic circle. What we see up here, this is Route 125, we have Route 4 here. Walgreens, Dan's done a really nice job of setting out landmarks here, and we have the property boundaries. So basically, this is the Walgreens lot. This is one of the Caliors families. Oh, there we go. Next one. Yep. So yeah, these lots here are all owned by the same family. They're split up currently a little bit. The family has plans to develop these areas of the lots for commercial uses. I think they want to do some sort of small grocery store, and then potentially a gas station, convenience store type structure, I think, up in this area. They planned an access road which starts down here actually. They have the permit to move through this piece of wetland and extend the road up to connect with the Wentworth Douglas urgent care access road over here. So we sat down and talked with them about what land that they would have available, and it turns out that the land over here on the west side of their planned access road that isn't finished yet is available, and Dan and I kind of looked at it. We did a rough drawing of the wetland boundary. We don't have great wetland data right now, but this was done from a survey that the landowner had for their own maps, and kind of roughed it on our sheet. And we have about 1.7 acres. It's in the record of decision for the Little Bay Bridges project that they want a 30 to 50 spot parking ride in this general area to address some of the traffic concerns on Route 4 and 125. And the landowner was open to talking with DOT about this parcel up here and possibly over into this area. Now, there's other dry areas up here that would be buildable, but those are owned currently by the Wentworth Douglas. They're considering building about 4 more buildings on their campus up in this area, which is all pretty dry land right now. We're pretty hopeful about this. We think this is a good location. DOT has tried out a couple of other locations that didn't work out. One of them was in the Market Basket parking lot, but because Planet Fitness moved in, all those parking spots are spoken for at this point. Another one was to the south and west of the circle, location called the Sugar Shack, and that didn't work out. It wasn't supported by transit agencies because they would have to go all the way through the circle. There was no signalized access, and it was a little bit dangerous. Yeah.
I'm just curious, for 30 parking spots, what are we talking about for an investment?
DOT at this point has set aside, Turnpikes has set aside the matching dollars. I'm not entirely sure. They haven't been completely clear about how much they've set aside, but I'm guessing that they've set aside around $75,000 for the match. I think the total, the rest of it would be funded by CMAC, or that's what was assumed at the time they made this decision. And so I'm guessing the maximum would probably be about $400,000 or $500,000 for the entire project, right-of-way acquisition, planning, design.
So we could build a
and
parking
construction.
garage.
Parking garage?
We could build a parking garage at $10,000 a spot, couldn't we?
I have no idea.
No, it
What the
doesn't look like a
situation
good
is. Do you know how much
investment to
the parking ride lot in Rochester is?
Don't have any idea.
Yeah, I could find that out probably, but I haven't heard much about that.
That just, it looks to me like you're building a hell of an access road to get out there and spending a lot of money on things that don't have anything to do with parking.
No, this access road is actually, he has the permits for it currently, and that would be constructed by the people, the commercial developers who purchase this land. This would be part of the agreement for them developing that land. They wouldn't have access on 125, as far as we know. It's pretty close to the circle and would add some dangerous intersections right by the circle. So the goal would be, this is signalized up here, have people come in this way and access from the back rather than right off 125 so that the traffic can keep flowing.
I have a question. What is your proposed number of parking spaces overall? I mean, if it's 30 spaces, I don't see that that's going to make any kind of dent in the traffic on Route 4. I mean, that would be...
I completely agree with you. The record decision states 30 to 50 spots. You know, based on our experience in Dover with exit 9 and some of these other, you know, high traffic areas, this is definitely a high traffic area. 125, that's about 20,000 cars a day going on it. Route 4 has about 14, 15,000. So we really think that, you know, 100 to 200 spots is a lot. Would make an actual impact and would probably be used pretty heavily.
The one in Dover is, you're talking about the one where C&J is?
Yep.
I mean, that's always pretty full. It's perfect, because people come from the north, people come from the south, they park there, because even if you're on C&J and take that, if you don't come to Dover and get on the bus, chances are you may not make it on the first bus that comes through in Newburyport, so, but that would be my concern, that it's like, it's such a little amount of spaces that it's not going to have a significant impact of any kind.
Would 50 fit in the area 1?
Yep, we've done some calculations about the requirements for space, and 50 would definitely fit in area 1. Maybe a few more. There would need to be a loop road for buses to get around and turn around, because they wouldn't be able to exit down to the south. It's restricted. No left turns out of there.
In the area 2, you said that if Douglas wants to expand, that area 2 is potentially available?
We don't know what Wentworth Douglas's plans are. That's just another area that's adjacent and it's dry. So I believe Wentworth Douglas is really hoping to develop a campus up this to the north side of this. This area over here, the landowner has no plans on building over there. Really can't do too much with it. There's a lot of wet area around here, so.
It'd be hard to connect it to the original.
Yeah, there would need to be some sort of variance to get over this area, but there is a UNH bus route that's going to be starting up from Durham, going north. Currently, I think we're planning on stopping over here, but I think it would really be ideal if you had a pull-off somewhere to go over this area.
And the nice thing about the access road is that it's not constructed yet. So when constructed, you don't actually have to do a loop road. You can construct the bus stops out on the access road.
Yep.
And that way it speeds the bus movement through, and it also doesn't take up more parking.
Yep. And it does a separation between the parking spot and
Right.
the pedestrians and the bus, where if you want to have some kind of protection for the people walking to the bus stop, a safe place for them to wait for the bus. Another nice thing about this is the urgent care is right here, and we can see the urgent care and these businesses getting a bump from having a transit stop right there, so people can access the facilities and the services that are there.
I have a question. What kind of bus transportation, other than the UNH transportation, are you suggesting maybe using that?
At this point, the UNH is the only planned transportation. I do think there are some one-day-a-week demand response services from Lee and Barrington that bring people to the market basket at this point.